Okay, well, perfect. So, hello, welcome to ISCO UK Meetup Hands-On series. So these sessions are brought to you by ISCO UK, a UK chapter of International Society for Knowledge Organization. We're a membership organization. Our website, iscouk.org, holds the repository of all previous ISCO UK events, along with details on membership benefits and how you can join. You can also find schedule of upcoming meetups and other relevant conferences and seminars there. So during most of the presentation, your mics will be muted, but we do have a couple of Q&A slots within the session. So please post your questions in the chat box and we'll get to them either in the session or we can talk about these topics offline. The entire session will be recorded and we'll put it on ISCO UK website. I think recordings and the slides from previous sessions are already there, so you can view them as well. Do let us know if you want to present at future ISCO UK meetups, and that's really for everybody from practitioners to students to researchers, anyone who's interested in knowledge organization. So just very quickly, because most of you have seen these slides before, the goal of the meetups, especially the hands-on meetups, is to build a community of people who are aware of, keen on using open source tools. And there's quite a landscape of tools. So we're just starting with VocBench, and our goal is that by the end of this workshop series, you'll have some familiarity with the key features, and you have some hands-on experience with it. And the way we're sort of approaching this is with these 3 different sessions. So the first 2 in April and in May were about VocBench, sort of general introduction, some key, overview of key features, how you can navigate, search, etc. The second one was on VocBench data import with sheet.rdf rather. And then this session is about vocabulary versioning and data catalogs, actually quite an exciting topic. So the way we're structuring it is first Armando Stellato, who's currently leading VocBench 3 project at the University of Rome, will talk about vocabulary versioning and data catalog features within VocBench, so that'll probably take a sort of quarter of an hour or so. And then Phil Stacey, who's currently with Barrett Holmes and helping run the ISCO UK meetups, he'll lead through a sort of hands-on portion of it. So what I'll do is, while Armando is going through introductions, I'll send through the sort of usernames and passwords for our VocBench instance that we created, so you can play along for the second part of the workshop. So just very briefly, although I'll send all of these details in the message in Zoom, that's the instance that we're going to be using for the workshop, for the hands-on part. We pre-created a number of usernames and passwords. I think we only have about 10 users online, so we'll have plenty of usernames for everybody, and it'll sort of allow us to play along, and you'll have the instance available, so you can come back and look at some other features. So with all that, I'll hand it over to Armando and let him take us through the versioning and data catalog functionality. Armando, over to you.
Thanks, Eugene, and hi everybody. And again, thanks Phil and Eugene for having me here. I will start very quickly with by sharing the screen and giving a demo of how to use the dataset catalog and the versioning features in VocBench. Okay, screen sharing should start very soon. You see VocBench?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll zoom a little into VocBench, so sometimes things might be a little close, but I think it's better for let's say, fitting up all the screens that might be from the clients. Okay, so I will quickly show by first the various points in VocBench from which it is possible to import/load data. By first, when you create a project, it is possible to, this is called preload. The preload option is an option for, let's say, inspecting the data that you want to load and automatically filling the form that is necessary for describing the main metadata about the data set that you're going to create. When I say data set, I say in general, because it could be an ontology, it could be a lexicon, it could be a thesaurus, it could be a generic RDF data set that is just data, modeled according to some ontology. So this is one initial way. Actually, after the preload, the data is effectively loaded into the platform. So there are two steps. By first, the data is preloaded in memory. So this kind of preloading only works for a limited resources. The default is 10 megabytes. You can raise this default by checking it out on the configuration of VocBench if you are the administrator, but I advise not to raise this up too much, because these resources are first inspected in memory and then loaded only on a second time in the effective triple store that you are using. Then there is another way. This is actually for loading the data of your dataset. There is another way, that is the import. This way uses the OWL import predicate of the OWL language. So in this case, usually the ontology is imported into your data, and it's like exactly, it's an import. Not that the data is read-only, and it's only used to the purpose, for example, of reasoning, or to provide the properties that need and the classes that need to be used for modeling your data. So in this case, you have these import options: web, web2mirror, local file, ontology mirror, dataset catalog. And then there is the possibility to load the data directly from here. In this case, your dataset is already configured. You already know the main metadata. This is the base URI, the default namespace, what kind of dataset it's. It's an ontology, it's a SCOS thesaurus. Does it use SCOS Excel labels or SCOS labels or RDFS labels, whatever. So in this case, you already configured everything and you are loading additional data. For example, this could be used if you already have some data, that is, your data set has already been modeled somehow, but you need then to edit in VocBench. Or, for example, you are loading additional data. Imagine that you have a file containing all alignments between your data set and another one. So you want to contribute this data that maybe has been produced externally by means of some alignment system, and you want to load it into the data. In this case, it's a load. It's not an import, in the sense that the data will be effectively loaded into the working space where you are normally editing the data in VocBench. So these are the three possibilities, and all of them feature the possibility to load data or import data from a dataset catalog. So let's see the first case. That is, I create a new project. I might call it, let's say, demo or temp. So I remember then to delete it. Temp both. Both is a vocabulary that is used by, it's incredible. Sorry, my keyboard ran out of battery exactly in this moment. Okay, it's back. VOF, that stands for vocabulary of a friend. It's a vocabulary that is used to power one of the dataset catalog that we will see now, because it's a vocabulary of metadata about our vocabularies. So now let's imagine that we want to edit this vocabulary, and I will use this as an excuse also to show you how this vocabulary is structured. So in this case, I'm creating a project for a vocabulary that already exists, maybe because I want to improve it, no? So instead of, I could just put the URI of the vocabulary and directly import it from the web, or I could load it from some local file that I have on my file system, or I can inspect a dataset catalog. So in this case, I go here, and then you can see there are various dataset catalog. These catalog are not using standard linked open data policies for exposing the data. They are just specific catalogs that have their own API. So this dataset catalog functionality in VocBench is a kind of umbrella for plugging different connectors to this dataset catalog. So on the one side, there are adapters with connectors to the API of each of these different catalogs on the web. On the other side, they use a consistent API within VocBench for providing the information and for loading it within the dataset. So the four dataset catalogs that are more or less available at the moment are European Union Open Data Portal, the Linked Open Data Cloud, and the Linked Open Vocabulary Service, and the Public Multimedia Knowledge Infrastructure. This one is still experimental in the sense that it's client for an application that we are also developing and that will be released July of this year together with VocBench 10. And it's a platform for the publication of data. VocBench is for editing, this one is for publication. So we also created a connector so that in VocBench, for example, it's possible to connect to an instance of this kind of publishing infrastructure in order to download the data and then edit it within VocBench. Now we'll use, in particular, the Linked Open Vocabulary Service. As the name suggests, this service is focused on vocabularies that in the OWL jargon means ontologies. Let's say that we want specifically, we know already that we want to import, to load both. So I look for it, and as you see, I get a faceted search in which, for example, there are the tags of the vocabulary, that is metadata. There are the languages in which the vocabulary is available, and here a short description with the most used prefix for that vocabulary, the title of the vocabulary in one language that is available, the URI of the vocabulary, and description of the vocabulary. All the dataset description in terms of metadata is also provided here once I click on the result. No? Because, for example, if I, this is just one single result because I specifically put both. But if I put a generic word like people, as you can see, I get a lot of result. No? So now I go back to both, I click on this, and then I click on OK. And you can see that by using the dataset catalog within this functionality, that is the data preloading, I already get for free the configuration of the project because the vocabulary, like I said, is inspected first. VocBench finds that the base URI of the vocabulary is probably this one. The model being used is OWL because it's an OWL vocabulary, and the lexicalizations are available through RDFS labels. So we can just create the project very quickly. And as you can see, here, I click on it. And this is the structure of the vocabulary. So this vocabulary contains three elements. One is the dataset occurrences, that is when this dataset has been used by others. Vocabulary space, as you can see from the comment, a vocabulary space defines any relevant grouping of vocabularies designed for similar purposes or domains. Another thing, this is the main class, is the vocabulary class. This vocabulary, which is a subclass of the dataset void, for those of you that are familiar with void, void is another famous metadata vocabulary, which has this generic reference of dataset that is any bunch of triples on the web. Okay, so a vocabulary is a subclass because it refines the concept of dataset specifically for OWL ontologies. And then there are a lot of properties here that can be used specifically for metadata, like class number is the number of classes that are available within a certain vocabulary. For example, the dataset, I guess it's the dataset when it has been used, that vocabulary. So currencies in datasets, it's then we have the usage in dataset, used by, and so on. That's all metadata properties that the property number give you the number of properties. These are all metadata properties that describe from a quantitative point of view and a qualitative point of view how the dataset is structured and how it is used by other datasets. You can see here this specific property, the term DC terms description, that in the case of both, it's used to host a Sparkle query that can be used exactly to produce the number that is associated to the statistic described by this property. So you can see a similar thing for class number. No? If you want to know what is the class number, what is the value of class number for a certain vocabulary, you can compute this automatically by running this query. So this is the both vocabulary, which is used by the LOVE dataset catalog. That is the one that we just inspected in order to load this vocabulary. So let's do another example now. We will move also to the description of the versioning system. So now we create another vocabulary that is temp versioning. In this case, I do not preload anything because I'm creating my own ontology on my own data set. So let's just invent one base URI, do.chu it ontology, whatever. Okay, and the model and the lexicalization model are fine this way. I'm just creating data. And now I show you that I will use the dataset catalog, in this case, to import an ontology. So the vocabulary has been created. I created my own URI for the data that I'm going to create, but I'm using FOF in this case as a modeling vocabulary for the data that I'm going to use. So I'm not interested into editing this vocabulary that I'm going to import. I only want to import it and use it to model my data. So I go on the namespace and imports option under metadata. And here you can see that there is add import from. Again, I could import directly from the web, from a local file, from the ontology mirror, that is a kind of mirroring repository for many vocabularies, or I can go again on the dataset catalog. So again, I'm using it for a vocabulary. So I'm connecting to LOVE. Let's say I want to create some data about people. And then let's see if there are some ontologies about people. As you can see, there are quite a few ontologies. Let's say let's use the most famous one. So this is the FOF ontology. And as you can see here, I can click again on OK, and I will import it. Let me add the namespace, the prefix for the namespace. From the next version of VocBench, this will be done automatically by using the prefix cc service. Anyway, now I'm doing it manually. So FOF. Now let's go here. You can see that we have this ontology, that is the FOF ontology, describing things about people, organizations, projects, documents, and so on. All basic information about people and what they do. So now we could decide that, okay, I already did a job of importing an ontology. Actually, it was not that difficult, but let's say that I want to store the ontology at this point. I just want to store, okay, this is all the ontologies that I've imported. Okay, just one, but it could be 3, 4. And I just want to, like version the time 0 before editing and after importing everything. So I go on the versioning option that is under global data management. And I decide to dump a new version. So I create an ID for this version. I call it 1.0. And then I go along with editing. Suppose now that I want to create an instance. And okay, I'm creating Armando Stellato. And now I click here and I want to add some properties. For example, well, one good thing could be FOF. Let's say the generic name that should be, maybe I have to show all. FOF name, which can be used practically as a label. So Armando Stellato. And that's all. So here I have my name for the property FOF name for Armando Stellato. And now I want to store again a version of this. So let's store, or let's see for now what I can do by inspecting the difference of the two. Now, if I can move to this older version, if I switch to this version, again, I go back on the data. And as I can see, there is no instance here. This is because I saved a snapshot of my vocabulary, of my dataset, sorry, at the time in which all the ontologies were imported, in this case only FOF, and there was still no data. So I go back on the version that I edited before, and that person that I created, Armando Stellato, is not here. So then I can go back to the current version, that is the one being edited. One thing, as you can see here, I cannot edit anything. You see that the buttons are all disabled because I cannot edit. This is a snapshot that has been saved. You can see here, I'm on version 1.0 now. If I want to go back to the current version, that is the one that I can edit and can go along in evolution, then I go back here, and here is back Armando Stellato that I created. Now let's do something else. I want to add some more properties. So in this case, let's look for a given name. I think again, I need to show a given name. This is, FOF has never been cleared out. There are so many similar properties. Anyway, the one that is mostly used is given name. And in this case, my given name is Armando. And then we have we might want to add some other information like the family name. And finally, let's save it for now at this point. So I go back again to the versioning. I created a new version. And now I keep editing. For example, I add the age, never that wise to add the age to some data, just add the date in which you are born, and then the age can be computed. Otherwise, your data will always be outdated. Anyway, let's use this property, maybe with integer. Okay, so I have saved various levels of the editing. Before I showed you that I could move to a different version, for example, like this one, and I cannot see anything, not even a person. Then I can move to another version and see what is the situation. But another thing that I can do is locally to the description of a single resource without changing globally, that takes some time. I just want to have a sort of time machine that allows me to change across different versions of a single resource that I edited. I can do this by changing the version very quickly locally to the description of the resource. So here, the resource is not available. It was not yet created. Then I have version.2, and I have family name and given name. And then I have the current version in which, oh, maybe I forgot to add it. Yeah, anyway, for some reason it wasn't stored. Anyway, it's the current. Let me see. No, because globally, sorry, I'm still on version 2.0. So if I move to the current version, switch version. So yes, here I am with the age. So again, if I move to 1.0, the resource was not available. 2.0, you see Stellato Armando. Then you move back to the current, and then what you see is the full listing of all the properties that have been edited. So that's pretty much about versioning. There are other features for VocBench which are close to versioning. Just to mention, because we are not in time with for the topic also of this webinar. Anyway, other features that might be relevant to the topic of versioning are the fact that you can use resource metadata. For example, when you create a project, you can specify that you want to use some resource metadata. And in this case, you can create some specific pattern. For example, you can say that for any resource, you want to use doubling core metadata. So in this case, whenever you create a new resource, okay, let's do it quickly. Temp DC. Okay, I think that's enough. Temp something. Temp DC. Okay, so now when I create a resource, for example, a new class, as you can see, I have already this property that has been set at the time in which I created the class. And if I change some description of the class, for example, I add a label, then you can see that you have a created date and a modified date. And every time I make a modification, I will have a modified date. Note that I selected that standard pattern that use DC terms vocabulary, but I can create even more complex pattern. They don't have to be just one single property. And let's say that the pattern embraces some editor where you can say, for example, what are the constructor? No? So every resource that is being created is decorated with the created property. When you make an update, the previous DCT modified is removed and a new one is inserted. And then you have the structures that in this case, they are not needed. There is an explanation here for the why that removes all the information that needs to be, let's say, cleaned up when you delete the resource. So the doubling core metadata is a pattern that is already available and embedded within VocBench when you download, so you already find it in VocBench. But you can create new patterns. For example, if you want to use the Pro-Vo vocabulary and create complex patterns, this is possible. And as I can see, as I show you during the creation of the project, it is possible also to associate different patterns to different kind of resources. Before I selected any resource, saying that any resource that is being created of any type is described by that metadata. But conversely, you can create different patterns for different kind of resources. Last thing, another important feature is, for example, the history that I think that I have shown in other webinars, that is the possibility to keep an history of all the actions that have been done, and all these actions are decorated with metadata. So that's all about versioning, and I'll leave the floor to Phil.
Well, thank you very much. That was a great detailed view. I think we'll see if there's any questions. Now, if you just want to unmute yourself and turn on your camera, if there was any questions. Okay. Right. Well, I think we're just continue on, and what I'll do is I'll just share my screen and see if any other questions come up. Right, so I don't know if anybody's had a chance to log in to the instance. Let me just see. Can you see my screen?
No, that's not coming up.
No. Okay. How about now?
That's okay.
Fantastic. Too many little boxes going on. So I don't know if anybody had a chance to log into the instance. If you want to raise your hand and let me know that you logged in. Okay, see one person. Or if you're following along on a local. Right, okay. So what I thought we'd do is just go over a couple small bits that Armando helped us with a bit earlier. And the first bit was namespaces and imports. Now, I've used this in the past, and it's been very helpful to just be able to get the latest version of an ontology from LOC. And I just thought it'd be really helpful to kind of run through that really slowly. And so I've just got an instance of the running here. And if you just drop down, I'll just make that a bit bigger so it doesn't stretch over. So just move that over to the side. And if you go over to metadata, and then you go namespaces and imports. Oops. What's happened there? Projects. Sorry about that. Namespaces and imports. And you can kind of see I've already imported it. But what I find quite helpful is if you want to bring in a number of different ontologies from standards, for example, DC terms or elements or what have you, that's not currently loaded. So you just go add from import. And then you would just select dataset catalog. And as Armando kindly illustrated, that there's a number of different catalogs here. I mean, in the past, I've really only used the LOV connector, but it's quite exciting to look at some of these other ones. I might need to explore those in the future. So LOV connector. And then in my particular case, I know the name of it. So I'm just going to type in Vof. Don't know why this is. Then go search. And you can kind of see there's a number of different ontologies here that have friend of a friend vocabulary. But because I typed in the actual one, it comes to the very top. But you can see for English, there's 6, French, Portuguese, Greek, what have you. So just go back and search that again. And then if you just click that, and then just click OK. And what I've always done is left resolve from the web, and that seems to work quite well. Some of them are bigger than others and take a few minutes to load up, but normally they're quite fast. And so it says it's already existing, but if I just click delete there. Oh. So that kind of gives you an idea of how you can import to Catalogue. The next thing I wanted to just go over was managing the history and validation. Now you can kind of see, as Armando was saying, when you're creating, I'll make this a little bit bigger. When you create a project, you'll need to check history and validation to be able to see the different areas here. And as you can kind of see, because I deleted something, it's come up in red. So that's a remove resource. But what I find really interesting is that this is creating triples, action triples. And I'm not that familiar with them, but greens are added and reds are removed, and then also you get a strike through at some point. So if we go over here to validation, you can kind of see the one that I just did there, and says remove import, and then you can go either accept and validate, and then that would take that one away. So if we go back to metadata and namespaces and imports, you can see it's removed. And then if I went to add it again, I could. Go search. And so now you can see that it's come up in green. So that's quite handy to be able to understand, you know, as you're going along or you're working with others, and that being able to collaborate and check what other people have done and how that may affect the updates you're doing, and being able to see those kind of as they go along. So the next thing I thought we'd look at is just the history. And so you can kind of see some of the history that me and Eugene have been doing over the last couple of days, removing metadata. And the nice thing is this is an easy way to kind of understand the amount of updates you've made to your vocabulary or ontology. So that was about it from the demonstration bit. I'll just go over here to data, and if let's see if, Eugene, if you made an update?
I think this is pretty similar to what we were looking at. So the hierarchy is slightly sort of different. So there's multi-manager, single manager, and then the rest under single manager. So there are no updates. But just maybe quickly, so what we're trying to show, I think, is how multi-user functionality and how collaboration really works here. So the project that Phil is looking at right now is called versioning_test. So everyone on the line can actually navigate to that project and just try either add a node or add a concept, and then Phil should be able to actually see it on screen. So what I can try and do as myself, just add, let's say, add a new concept. Let's say under opportunistic, we'll add global macro, for example. Right, so that's added. So Phil, if you refresh your screen, you'll actually see my update and what's been added. So it's under opportunistic. Yeah, right.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and so any one of the participants obviously can add their own their own comments or their own concepts and see how collaboration would work in sort of real life scenario. So perhaps the step that we haven't quite done here is actually talking through what might be involved in sort of creating a new version. Obviously, Armando talked through versioning functionality, but sort of were you getting to the sort of step-by-step explanation of here's what we're doing at the scheme level and here's what we're doing at the concept level, and then sort of getting to the
I haven't kind of gone over the versioning of schemas because I think that's yeah.
Okay.
Armando, go ahead.
No, that's fine. I think the key piece here, the key thing that's you're actually showing now is that we have this common project. We can all work on it. So whoever's joined, whoever has access rights, and in this case, it's everybody in this workshop. We can collaborate on a single vocabulary or ontology, and then a version can be released as a sort of a snapshot of all that work. And we can go through and, for example, if you look at validation right now, actually see this, right? So you see what's actually being done, and you can leave comments, for example, right? So you can see that there's obviously 2 changes from you. So you added something. You changed some node by the looks of it. Right. So I added the concept. No one else have done any other changes, but the way we can sort of proceed from here is obviously change a set of metadata on the concept scheme, similar to what Armando was showing. Accept all of these changes, create a new dump. So if we're thinking through a sort of a workflow, it's really start with the changes, make sure that everybody's fine. We can go through a set of comments, we go through a workflow of acceptance. And once all of these changes are accepted, then you can create a dump, exactly like Armando was showing via the versioning functionality. Yeah.
The comments are usually actively, at least, let's say, some of them, and but we keep all of them because in the future you never know for which reason they might be used for new functionalities. At the moment, for example, when you create a new concept that has a new label, or you create a new label, so any action that for any reason creates a new label, if the action is rejected, the comment is very much valuable because there is a new feature that is called blacklisting. If you have something that has been rejected that implied the creation of a label, that whenever in the future somebody creates a new concept with the same label or adds a new label that is actually identical to the one that has been rejected in the past, then the user will be alerted with the fact that the label has already been rejected in the past, and they will be prompted with the rationale for rejecting it at the time. So the comments there are very useful because they can be actively used also in the future to inform users not to fall into the same pitfalls.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good.
Okay, so then maybe just complete this workflow. So if you just accept all of our changes and go see what and
so I'll accept them all, and you can just kind of see that it just changes them, or if I rejected them, it would change that, and then you just click validate, and it's taken on board all those changes.
Oh, look, somebody else added something.
Oh, right.
Somebody else changed the label, right? So maybe we need a new version with that.
So let's just have a quick.
Yeah. So right. So there's I think that's from Janine.
Right. Okay. Well, should we just do a quick wrap up and some Q&A? I'll stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I don't know if there's been any questions.
I haven't seen any questions in the chat box.
No.
So any questions that you might have on versioning or history? I think it's quite a fascinating topic. There are quite a bit of there's several patterns that one can use for versioning with SCOS and with OWL. So it's always interesting to see what people actually use in the wild on their projects and see what questions they have.
Yeah, I know I've got a couple things to look at. I'm going to have a look at Armando's video on, the patterns and what have you. I think that's quite an interesting way to do versioning.
Okay, well, seems like there are no questions then. So what we might do for this session is we might wrap up and just let everybody know that we're planning a number of other hands-on sessions where we look at different open source tools really across this spectrum of capabilities, from taxonomy, authoring, publication, subject indexing, document management, see how all of that integrates.
Yeah.
So hopefully you'll see more of the open source tools, or not open source, you know, there's options.
Just tools, yeah.
Just tools. Great. Okay. Well, thank you everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Armando.
Yes, thank you, Armando.
Thank everybody for attending, and again, thanks Eugene and Phil for inviting me here. Until next time, then.
Thanks.
All right.
See you next
Take
time.
care.
Bye.
Bye.